unless Israel takes significant steps towards peace. Prime Minister Keir Starmer made that announcement after recalling his cabinet for emergency talks amid the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Reiterating the call for a ceasefire, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer said the following.
We need a ceasefire. We need always to keep in our mind the hostages and the atrocity of October the 7th, and they must be immediately released. They've been held a very, very long time. But also we need alongside that to ensure we get aid in volume and in speed into...
Well, this follows UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy's statements at the UN conference where he declared the viability of the two-state solution. This is what Lammy said.
It is with the hand of history on our shoulders that His Majesty's government therefore intends to recognise the state of Palestine when the UN General Assembly gathers in September here in New York.
While Israel has strongly rejected the plan, calling it a reward for terrorism, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the move punishes victims and could endanger the UK itself. Meanwhile, 17 countries alongside the European Union and Arab League declaration calling for Hamas to end its rule in Gaza and hand over weapons to the Palestinian authorities with international support. Well, joining us to discuss all of these updates, Dr. Wael Awad, a Middle East affairs expert who's joining us live from New Delhi. Dr. Awad, thank you for your time. Let's first look at this statement from Keir Starmer, of course, threatening to acknowledge a Palestinian state. We've seen France already make this promise and make this pledge. Is it actually going to have any difference to the ongoing conflict, given Israel's stance and sort of vision towards their goals, which is to eradicate Hamas, free all the hostages and make sure that October the 7th can't happen again?
Well, I think it's a high time that the British government recognize the mistake they have done or the blunder they have committed against the Palestinians more than a century ago when they have before declaration. And in that declaration also not only they gave the Israelis the state of recognizing a state of Israel within Palestine, but at the same time, they were also recognizing a Palestinian state next to Israeli state. So therefore, if that was the commitment 115 years ago, then why are they not able to implement it? And why now? I think it is a symbolic, it's more of a symbolic that the government of Britain have not been able, neither the government of UK and the rest of the European country, in fact, even in the United States, where people are in a position to close their eyes anymore, to see that this is not a war against Hamas, which they are leading, and that Israel has been deceiving the public for the last 22 months plus of this war, 7th of October, because they were saying militarily they're trying to eradicate Hamas. But now we are seeing a genocide, a different kind of a genocide, a starvation till death or you leave the countries, and therefore they cannot leave the country, so they are dying. And we have every 10 hours, 2 Palestinians are dying, especially children and elderly women, because they don't have food to eat. In addition to the continuous bombardment of the AIDS workers and the AIDS people running for getting the AIDS. So I think this is a high time where the international community has to recognize there is no way out to settle in the Middle East without two-state solution, and the Palestinians have the full right to have a homeland in their own home, and they cannot be expelled out of their home because Israel believes that it is only a state for the Jew and not for the Palestinians who have been the aboriginal of this land.
Dr. Awad, just to, of course, provide some context from the Israeli side, they say that a genocide is not ongoing, that there is enough aid in Gaza. That refuted by over 100 NGOs, the UN themselves as well. But this situation, of course, it is made more difficult, Dr. Awad, because ceasefire talks have broken down. The US and Israel say that Hamas don't want a ceasefire. What point of this pressure will potentially move towards Hamas, given the fact that Israel did agree to this 60-day ceasefire that was proposed by Steve Witkoff some time ago. A fresh proposal was issued by Egypt, a mediator in these conversations, and Hamas said no to that. Is there any acknowledgement that Hamas need to agree to a deal as well, rather than all of this pressure potentially being on Israel for diplomacy from world leaders?
I think we have to also recognize that the fight against Palestinian is not only Hamas. Hamas is not Palestine, by the way. Hamas is a faction of the Palestinian who resisted occupation, who have a collaboration with Netanyahu over the years, who has been funding their monies with, which is siphoned from outside, and he made enough money for himself. So therefore, Hamas was created as an alternative to the Palestinian Authority. So therefore, if we keep focusing on Gaza strips and blaming Hamas for the ceasefire, actually Hamas from day one wanted this fire to happen, and only on their conditions that they are wanted to have a permanent kind of a withdrawal of the Israelis, permanent stop of the war, and also release of the hostages that they are in their captivity, in exchange of Palestinian prisoners who have been languishing inside the Israeli jails for more than 10 years and 15 years, and some of them are the longest serving persons in Israeli jail. So I think that was a settlement. But because the international community and the media only focus on Hamas and putting the total blame on Hamas, I think it's a high time to see also on the other eyes what's happening in West Bank. If Hamas is seriously in Gaza and creating all this problem for the Israelis, then what's happening in the West Bank? We are having more than 15,000 people have been captured, more than 1,200 has been killed, more than 89 children have been killed in West Bank. Then if that is the situation, then why Israelis continue its annexation of the territories of Palestine? I think the main objective of Israel is, and it is now totally exposed, and it has been talked even in the Israeli media, that Israel will not accept any state of Palestine inside Israel or inside the Palestinian territories. Therefore, it's a time that they wanted to expel the whole Palestinian from the West Bank, from Gaza Strip. And even Netanyahu have submitted to the minister, to the Knesset, to the ministerial cabinet, that a plan to annex the total of Gaza and gradually push the Palestinian into a ghettos-like corners where they can be either expelled out of the Gaza when there is a time permit that, and countries like Egypt or Jordan accept, or they can also force them to die by starvation and watching them dying. So I think these are the issues. No one in this world should always close their eyes. For the last 75 years, Israel have used the mass of deceptions to create, to victimize itself, that it is a victim in the region, while we all know that it is the creating of all the trouble. Unless and until we have a two-state solution, coexistence among Israel and the Palestinians, there is no solution to the crisis. You cannot expel 6.5 million Palestinians out of their countries because Israel wanted to have its own entity as a Jewish state in that region. Therefore, I think Hamas will accept any ceasefire, any sort of settlement, because it is no more Hamas-Israel fight. It is Israel against the Palestinians.
Dr. Awad, to finish our discussion, where does this go next? What is the next step with ceasefire talks breaking down, international condemnation seemingly having no impact on Israel's military goals, and a potentially worsening situation in Gaza?
Well, I think the ball in the court of the United States, President Trump, and even Prime Minister Netanyahu, who should also change his ambition toward the greater Israel in that part of the world and give the Palestinians some sense of breathing ground where they can survive, where they can start their own normal life. I think the international community has to apply pressure, especially at the UN Security Council, that there should be pressure from them. But however, it is still in the hand of Mr. Trump, who is even refusing to accept the two-state solution, or even recognizing a Palestinian state, where he said he is not a party with Macron or with the Prime Minister of Britain. So if he is not a party to UK and France, that means the war will continue and there is no question of any solution. So I think the American arms should be stopped, embargo should be imposed, and countries should apply sanctions on Israel if seriously we wanted to find a solution to the current crisis. But do they have the teeth to do that? I think we have to wait and watch.
Dr. Awad, thank you ever so much for your insights and your time. Of course, a difficult point of discussion.